Do you ever get stuck when you're working on a tune and you're starting to look for other sounds that complement what you already have going on, and then you spend a ton of time looking through presets, looking through your library, and have trouble just finding stuff that meshes well together? Or are you an Ableton drum rack user with the Push 2 and are feeling very just uninspired by the stock Ableton packs and drum racks that are in there? There's a lot of great ones, but I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't do the trick. In this video, we're gonna go over how you can create your own custom drum racks and kind of get a sound palette for a song, making the songwriting process so much easier and so much more fun. So let's jump in. Hey yo, it's Alex from Mind Music, and as always with this channel, it's my mission to help you, the artist, produce themselves by developing their mindset, expanding their creativity, and connecting to their music in a deeper way. And in today's video, we're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna build our own custom dynamic drum rack to really help the songwriting process. This is something I've gotten into a lot recently, and it's kind of falls into the first step of my workflow that I teach to my students. And if you want to check out that step of the workflow along with all the other steps, there's a PDF in the description below that you can download to check it out. All right, so no more delay. Let's go ahead and jump in to starting to craft a drum rack. Okay, so let's move to the DAW transition. So what we're going to do is just delete everything except a MIDI track to get started. Then we're going to go to drums, and we're going to find the drum rack. We're going to pop a drum rack onto a MIDI track. All right, and the whole idea of creating a drum rack in my mind is to make it very dynamic so that you can get a lot of mileage out of one single pad, out of one single sound, depending on how you play it. And this will just allow you to stay in flow state longer and reach farther sonic potential with one drum rack. Okay, so that's kind of the North Star that we're going to be aiming for as we're creating this drum rack. All right, so the first thing we're going to start with is our kick drum. All right, so you can use absolutely any type of sound to make a kick drum, and I'm just going to go ahead and look for something that might be fun to make a kick drum out of. You can use a kick drum sample, you can use any other sound, you can even use a synth. It's up to you, but I'm going to go ahead in my audio samples. I just got this sample pack with all sorts of cool like field recordings of nature and stuff. All right, so let's go with this one. So I'm just going to click and drag this onto a drum rack, and you can see that it pops up into a simpler, and this is where we can actually adjust the sample. Okay, so that's what we got. I'm actually going to move this so it starts right at the beginning here, and I'm going to increase the volume. And then the first thing I'm going to do is transpose this down like crazy. All right, so that's already starting to sound like a kick. Let's increase the volume a little bit. All right, and the first thing we're gonna do is take the control of our volume envelope, which is down here, and take the sustain all the way down. All right, I'm gonna reduce the release a little bit so it's easier to play, and we're gonna increase the decay a little bit. The next thing I'm gonna do is go to the pitch envelope, and I'm gonna increase the amount a little bit. I turned down the transposition some more to get it lower pitch, and changing the sustain and the release allows us to get a different sound depending how we hit the pad. So if I hit the pad really quick, I get kind of a higher pitch sound, and if I really hold it, I get that kind of low end, and you can hear the water, right, which is really cool. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is layer in another sound. So again, you can be totally as creative as you want, and a great way to do this is we're gonna select this simpler device here, and we're gonna hit Command G to group it, and then we can open up the chain selector. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and find a hi-hat sample. So I'm just gonna type in hi-hat in my samples folder. All right, so I like this one. I'm just gonna click and drag this right here, and it's gonna create another rack, and now we're playing both the kick and the hi-hat at the same time. All right, so we're gonna go into this hi-hat sample, and this is a pretty short sample, but if you have a longer hi-hat sample or whatever type of sound you're using, just make sure to shorten it because we just want the click of this hi-hat. So it's already pretty clicky, but we can shorten it even more if we wanted to. So something like that. All right, and again, we're going to remove all the sustain from this. We're gonna maybe bring the volume up a touch. Maybe play with the release. And then another cool layer to add is some sort of noise. So I'm going to type that in as well. Noise. All right, so I found some random noise that I like. So let's pop it in here as another layer. And now we're getting all three of those layers at the same time when we hit that pad. I'm going to adjust the volume and I'm going to put on a high pass filter. So with those layers, now we have a really cool kick sample. Pretty unique. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is just to add some glue to all these layers. We're going to take this instrument rack of our three sounds and we're going to group this again. So we have a group within a group, which is super meta. And now here we can add in an effect on the whole group if we drag something here. And what we're going to add is a saturator, which is great for gluing things together. So let's go ahead and grab a saturator here, pop it on everything, make sure it goes right there. All right, so the saturator is kind of just gluing everything together and it's reducing the intensity of the punch. And then finally, I'm just going to add in some EQ. So let's go for EQ, EQ8, put it behind the saturator. And all we're going to do is take out some of the low and the high end as well. So just like that, we've quickly made a kick drum that's responsive to how we're hitting it. So if I hit it really light, it has a certain sound. If we hit it long, we can really hear the water. We can hear all those layers working together. So next, let's move on to a snare. And with snares, I typically like to work with snare samples, although you can experiment as much as you want to. But I'm just going to go ahead into the samples here, and I'm going to search up snare and just find something that I like. I like that one. So I'm just going to click and drag this onto another cell. And again, I'm just going to adjust the starting point and the end point. Increase the volume. And again, we're going to go into classic mode and we're going to take out all the sustain. So we can play it and we're going to increase the release, change the release here, and adjust the decay as well. Right, and the whole reason for this is so you can have articulation on this pad, right? So if we do like a snare roll, we can hear the nuance of our playing. And one fun thing to do on a snare sample is to add some reverb directly on it. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, you can have fun and explore all sorts of different effects and customizations to make it fit with what you want, but I'll just show you an example here. So let's grab the reverb, put it here, and make sure it's on the snare. Let's increase this decay time a tiny bit. Just a filter here on the reverb. We could go ahead and turn the quality high because it'll make it sound a ton better. And maybe we'll add in a bit more pre-delay as well. So there's a little bit more space between when we hit it and the echo we hear. I might actually pitch down this sample as well. So let's go here and pitch it down. Another thing that's cool to add on a snare is a compressor. So let's grab the compressor, throw it on, boom. And that's just making the reverb that much more audible when we hit it. And group them. So I'm hit Command G, and now they're in their own group. And now we can add another layer again with this chain selector. So what we're going to do is add some noise again and play around with the texture so we can have a more dynamic snare sound as well. So I'm going to go again into samples, search up noise, white noise. Sure, this one's cool. So I'm going to pop this beside our snare sample. Now they're playing at the same time. All right, the next thing we're going to add on the white noise is some auto pan. So I'm going to find it here and I'm going to drag it right beside our white noise sample. And then we're going to pull the phase all the way down and increase the amount. So we can get kind of that pulsy LFO sound. And if we want to, we can even loop the sample so it'll keep going when we hold it. If we adjust the endpoint, I'm just going to leave it on sine wave. So already we have a kick drum that is dynamic depending on how we play it. And then we also have a dynamic snare sound that will show us the nuance of our playing, as well as if we hold it down, have that pulsing noise behind it, right? So maybe next we want to add some sort of hi-hat sound or shaker sound. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just record the shaker I have here. So all I'm going to do is create an audio track, make the input 1, and let's record some shaker. All right, that's good. So we got some shaker in, and all I'm going to do is grab this audio and I'm going to drag it into another rack here, and we can increase the volume so it was low. And let's find one that we like. Another cool trick is we can actually duplicate this cell by holding Alt and click and dragging. So now we've copied this other one, and all I'm going to do is move this point, this start and end point, to be this other shaker sound. So now in this pad, we have a different shaker sound than this one. And I might transpose this down just to have some more variety. So again, on this one, I'm going to go into classic mode, and I'm going to take the sustain all the way down so we can actually play it some more. And another cool way to add some movement is to play around with some MIDI effects. So let's go to our MIDI effects and let's find our arpeggiator. Let's smack that on this sample in front of the shaker sample. And let's go to free mode. And we can adjust the rate to create all sorts of crazy movement. And sky is the limit with what you can do with this stuff, but what I want to do is go ahead and reach for an LFO. So let's go into Max for Live, LFO. And now we have an LFO that's oscillating. Let's turn it down a little bit. And we're going to assign this to our rate of our arpeggiator, if that's even possible. So map to this, boom, right there. So now our rate is moving, and we can adjust the depth so it doesn't go quite as crazy. And now when we hold this, it will be moving and changing depending on when this is in its cycle, right? Maybe we want more decay. So now you can hold this while you're playing a beat or something. I'm also going to edit this sample a little bit. So I'm going to go into classic mode. Again, take out the sustain, turn up the volume. All right, so I hope you can see how crazy you can go with mapping things and creating these dynamic sounds that really react differently depending on how you play them and create their own sounds, like something like this. So another thing to add to a drum rack is some atmosphere, some vibe. And a great way to do that is to play with samples, right? So if you have a record player, you can sample some records, or if you have sample packs or some samples you really like, you can find them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and look in the sample pack I downloaded. So that's a cool sample. I'm gonna put that, I like this sample, I'm gonna pop it in a drum rack here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, again, copy this over and change the starting point of the second one to be the second chord. And already you can start sculpting a soundscape and a vibe, things that you really like. You can record yourself playing an instrument, whatever it is, your vocals, shakers, textures, and really get a vibe going really quick. Here's another sample I like. So again, I'm just going to click and drag it here. We know the drill. I only want this first part of it. You could play around with the release of this pad or whatever vibe you're going for to loop by itself as much as you want or don't want when you let go, right? So if the release is really high, that means it's going to loop by itself a ton, even when I'm not playing it, which is fun to play around with. But if you didn't want that, you could just decrease the release. And then when you let go, it fades out pretty quick. All right, now that we have some vibe going, we can actually add some melodic elements. And there's some really cool things you can do with melody and recording samples and really just continuing to set up a sketch pad for a song. So I'm just gonna go with something super simple like a sine wave here. And I'm gonna click and drag this onto another pad. So now we have this hilarious sine wave. I'm just gonna take out the click in the beginning, right? Maybe we wanna add some delay to this one. And then the next thing we can do is, again, go into our MIDI effects and go into our random and click and put this in front of our sine. So I've just added random and I've increased the chance to 100. And now every time we hit this pad, it plays a different note, which is super cool. But maybe we want it to fit in a scale. So I'm just gonna grab scale and put it behind the random. And then we can actually pick a scale for it to fit with inside. And then once you add the scale onto that note or that sample, you can adjust and tune the scale to fit with the vibe and the key of your other samples. So this can really be handy if you just want to stay in flow state and really come up with cool melodies and parts with vibe, right? Maybe we want to add some vocals. So let's throw on a vocal sample, do the same thing. Yay. Right, we can add some really fun delays onto that, get some vibes, some mad vibes. And maybe you want to record some guitar or something to add some more samples and some more live feel into it. So I'm going to record some guitar chords that fit with the vibe of what we have going on already. So I have my guitar plugged into my pedal board here with some delay on, and I found a couple chords that fit the vibe of this. So all I'm going to do is just record this. Yeah, and then we'll use it as samples in our drum rack. Wrong chord, it's all good. That's all I wanted. Let's put the guitar away. Back into our drum rack, I'm just gonna click and drag this audio again. Now we have this guitar sample. The wrong first chord. But for this one, I'm just gonna find the first chord here. And again, I'm just gonna hold Alt and duplicate this cell. And then on the second cell, I'm going to adjust the start and end time to be the second. Right, and I already have a delay on it. I like the sound of these. All right, let's transition to the hands so we can see it a little bit better. And of course, I've just scratched the surface of what's possible, but now we have just 12 pads here and we can go on to get 16. And if you have a push 2, you can go on to get 64. So you can spend some time doing some sound design, finding some samples, recording riffs, recording ideas. And instead of using it in the traditional sense of getting loops going in session view, which is still amazing, you can kind of create this sketch pad for a whole song and have a bunch of stuff committed to audio so that you're not necessarily needing to have a bunch of different tracks with different virtual instruments and stuff. You can just sample it as you go and then get a collection of really cool vibes that work together. And then when you're ready to record ideas, it becomes a cinch. So I'm just going to turn this other track off, and whether you're sequencing it in or you're playing it in, it's super easy to come up with ideas and vibes. All right, so it's super easy to sketch out ideas and get a vibe really quick. So let's play around with turn on the metronome. I want something more vibey, turn it down. All right, and let's say we like that. Let's turn off the metronome. We could duplicate this loop. Now we're editing a copy underneath the first one. So let's say you wanted to record some ideas over this, just press play, and it's easy as that. You can just hit record and pencil in some new stuff. right? And you can play around with other vibes. So that's cool. Let's throw that in. So let's say you wanted to double the length of this loop, just hit double loop. And let's say we want to play around with these guitars. Let's go ahead. 2, 3, 4. If you're just getting started with music production and feeling completely overwhelmed by the process, or if you've been at this for a while but are having trouble finishing projects, or if you just want to get a glimpse inside my personal workflow, which this step would fit into to help you go from your very first ideas all the way to a finished master, it's super handy to have around the studio as a printout to keep you on track. And if you're interested in grabbing that, again, you can grab it in the description below. If you got value out of this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay in the loop for the next MetaMind Music transmission, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And with that said, that wraps up this video. I hope it was valuable and useful to you, helped you unlock and see new potential and possibilities within creating your own drum racks and using samples and tripping them out and really getting like a sonic palette to go ahead and start building a song. Instead of always trying to find sounds as you're going, you kind of do it ahead of time so you can get into flow state and let the ideas fly. All right, so we'll see you in the next video.